Welcome to the International Online Advanced Press Conference for SMM 2021. Together with top industry speakers, we'll talk about the postponement of SMM, the leading international maritime trade fair, and discuss the effects the COVID-19 pandemic is having on the maritime industry. We welcome our speakers to the virtual stage.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first online advanced press conference for SMM, the leading maritime trade fair. As you will already know, the SMM is postponed because of the corona crisis and will open the gates next year from February 2nd to 5th. Thanks for joining us online. My name is Daniel Münter and I will be your host for the next 90 minutes. It's great to see that many journalists from all around the world have joined us today from more than 20 countries. This press conference will feature a 60 to 70 minute panel discussion followed by a Q&A session at the end. To get the questions across without technical problems, we would like you to send them by email to Nora Hirschfeld, PR Manager at SMM. You can find her email address on your screen right now and in the confirmation email to this event. Please send your questions together with your name, news outlet, and the name of the expert you're directing it to. If your question can't be answered live due to our time frame, Nora will get back to you after the press conference via email individually. Thanks for your understanding. We are recording this live press conference, so you and those who can't participate will be able to review it on the SMM YouTube channel afterwards. So now I would like to welcome today's experts for the press conference. From Istanbul, Turkey, Sadan Kaptanoglu, President and Chairperson of the Board of BIMCO, the Baltic and International Maritime Council. From Barcelona, Spain, Cristina Aleixendri, Chief Operating Officer of Bound4Blue, a young startup dedicated to adding modern wind propulsion to the international shipping fleet. From Munich, Germany, Dirk Lehmann, Managing Director of Becker Maritime Systems and Vice Chairman of Sea Europe, the shipyard's Maritime Equipment Association. From Oslo, Norway, Knut Ørbeck-Nilssen, Chief Executive Officer, DNVGL Maritime. From Staffordshire, Moorlands, England, Martin Stopford, President at Clarkson Research. And of course, from Hamburg, Germany, Bernd Aufderheide, President and CEO of Hamburg, Messe and Congress. Welcome to you all. Bernd, our conversation today is not face-to-face, even though we are both at Messe Hamburg. We are practicing social distancing with you participating from your office. That immediately raises the most important question, how the SMM can actually take place. A trade fair is a place where people get together, interact. How would you describe your mood as a trade fair organizer in these times of coronavirus?
Well, first of all, hi Daniel, hi dear partners and colleagues all around the world. It's good to know that you are somewhere out in the orbit, so to say, joining us digital. Best regards and greetings from the command center of Hamburg, Messe and Congress, which is currently actually a rather quiet place, which in some way already describes my mood as an exhibition organizer. But the impression that it's quiet is a little bit misleading because most of us are working, even if remotely, in home office and other places. So the usual hustle and bustle that we do have in advance to such a big exhibition like SMM is simply been relocated. And of course, I would have preferred to welcome all of you to Hamburg personally and hold this SMM press conference in your physical presence. But as we know, things have turned out rather differently. The happier actually I am that we are able to communicate in spite of these adverse conditions, thanks to advanced technology. And I hope and I'm sure that this technology will help us to communicate. Many of us, and I guess that's true for all of you, are now used to working from home and to have virtual meetings with colleagues or interview with partners at the time. On the other hand, we all hope that the soon as possible we will be able to meet physically again and have face-to-face communication. And of course, I'm not telling you a secret when I point out that as an organizer of major events, Hamburg Messe and Congress has been hit by the corona pandemic especially hard. Originally, 2020 was to be a year full of international trade fairs and congresses, but since March, actually, our halls are empty. Never before in the 57th year history, SMM has been postponed. This is an unprecedented situation, but we are pulling together to overcome the challenge. And the expo industry, similar to the maritime sector, is accustomed to tackling new challenges. And I'm therefore quite confident that we will be able to ride out of this crisis together and even grow in the process.
You have decided to postpone SMM from September of this year to February 2021. Why was this decision made, and what will happen until then?
Well, yes, we made the announcement last week that SMM will be postponed to February. And of course, it was not an easy decision for us to postpone it. And to us, the biennial SMM is an absolute highlight in our calendar of events. And needless to say, preparations are in full swing. But the continued highly dynamic development of the corona pandemic and its impact on international traveling and on major events did not leave us any other choice but to postpone. And I'm actually delighted that we were able to find a new time frame that has not only been met with the express support of the Exhibitor Advisory Board, but also that of our partners and the industry association. And it's important to note that we are postponing the entire SMM as previously planned. This means that the hall occupancy, the booked stand locations, the supporting program will remain unchanged. So we expect the trade fair to run its normal course over the 4 days. But having said that, we of course do reserve the right to shorten perhaps the duration of the event if this deemed appropriate. But we are confident that we can run it as we planned. We are also making certain adjustments to account for the new situation. We are planning to form a roundtable with the responsible authorities and safe and healthy managers of several exhibiting companies to ensure optimum safety for all participants as well as the best possible outcome for the trade fair. After all, the health of our exhibitors, of our visitors, and of our staff is our highest priority.
So what kind of content will SMM 2021 be presenting?
Well, Daniel, it's still more than 8 months to go until February, and that is enough time to make some adjustments to the concept of SMM in terms of content to account for the given circumstances. For example, we are placing great emphasis on digital formats. I cannot right now give you the specifics today, since we announced the postponement just a few days ago, but you may rest assured that we are working closely with the exhibitors and our partners to make sure that we stage a very memorable show. So at SMM 2021, the industry audience will be able to experience the full range of innovations the industry has to offer. And our focal topic will be the industry's mega theme, which we are promoting vigorously, and that is the maritime transition, the sustainable transformation of the industry, primarily through green technologies and digital solutions. This will be the dominant topic at the exhibitor stands and in the expert conferences such as GMAC or the Maritime Future Summit. One thing is clear, the effects of the corona pandemic will be a constant in all the discussions at exhibitor stands and in the conferences next February. How can we find our way out of the crisis after ending the lockdown? What can we learn from these experiences? How can we build a future for the industry? And these are exactly the topics our expert panel will discuss right after this interview. The effects of the pandemic on the maritime sector and why climate protection continues to be of such great importance. In view of the current situations, which is so exceptional and which compels us all around the world to take appropriate actions, allow me just one short closing statement. Nobody is currently able to foresee how the pandemic will evolve and what are the consequences. But what I can say with confidence today is that we have a strong team on board to power SMM, a team that will do everything to deliver an exceptional and compact SMM from February 2nd to 5th for all our exhibitors and visitors from around the world. And we will probably, and that might also be a very good sign, probably will be the first flagship industry fair of the international standing to take place in the new year. So it will be a really special experience for all of us to see the global maritime community gather and roam our entire exhibition campus after such a long period of social distancing. And we are, and I'm personally very much looking forward to that.
Thank you for these interesting insights and the outlook to SMM 2021. Bernd will be in this conference call until 3 p.m. our time, that is roughly for another 45 minutes. If you journalists have questions that are directed at him, please send them by email early. We will try to fit them in. The corona pandemic has effects on almost every industry sector. Today, we want to talk about the consequences, the current situation, and what lies ahead for the maritime industry. Martin, as an international renowned expert, you have seen some major shifts in your lifetime, but surely nothing quite like this. For most of us, it's hard to keep up with what the pandemic is doing to the sector. What is the situation in the maritime industry right now?
Well, thank you, Dirk. This is, as you so rightly say, a unique situation. I counted up and I think I've been through 6 of these sort of events before, but nothing quite like this. I describe the position today as the calm before the storm. When we look at the shipping markets, actually, the rates are not so bad. We run an index called the Clarkson index, which covers tankers, bulk carriers, container ships, and gas. And last week, that was running at 45% over the average for the last 7 years. So the earnings are pretty good. It's patchy, though. I mean, some of that, as I'm sure most people listening to this will know, is due to the astonishing rates that the tankers have been getting, not because there's a lot of cargo moving, but because the demand's collapsed and there's nowhere to put the oil except in tankers, and they're paying astonishing rates for that. Bulkers are not so good, but gas, chemicals, they're okay, and the ports seem to be moving cargo mostly. Problems with logistics. So I think the main concern, obviously, is that world industry already in March had fallen 2.7% compared with a year ago, and that was before the impact of the virus came through. We were already heading into recession, and now I think that we'll do well to get away with a fall of 10 to 15% this year, and that'll be pretty bad news for the shipping industry. The shipbuilders aren't taking many orders at the moment, just their orders are about 50% down, and I think, they're just watching apprehensively to see what the future will bring.
Mm-hmm. Sadan, due to the lockdown and the travel restrictions, crew changes are currently not possible. At some point, more than 150,000 crew members were waiting to be relieved worldwide. Instead of going home, they had to keep working. How are you, as the Ship Owners Association, helping your members in these uncertain times?
Thank you, Daniel. Before I answer your question, I want to send my condolences for all the lives that has been lost, and it continues, it's happening. These are the very unprecedented times, and also I think have to thank all the front fighters, especially the medical teams during this pandemic. During this pandemic, again, I think there are heroes out there very openly, and there are hidden heroes. And to me, seafarers are the hidden heroes of this pandemic. From the very early days, IMO, BIMCO, and all the shipping organization, we've been working together closer than ever. And the reason of this is the well-being and safety of our seafarers. Because if you look at the ship owners, what is the responsibility of a ship owner? To actually do, to serve the seaborne trade and be sure that seaborne trade, which is the backbone of the whole supply chain, to continue effectively and safely. And can we do this without our seafarers? We cannot. They are vital, and we really appreciate, all the efforts they've been showing so far. And also, I think I'm obliged to salute them. So thank you very much to them. And so, as I said before, we've been working very closely, and of course, there are things that we do individually as well. And in BIMCO, from the first day, we open all our consultancy and advising part of our website, not only our members, but to all the members of the shipping community regarding the coronavirus-19. And so that includes that, the regulation advices, inspections, all the legal aspects, and of course the ports and all the current information ports. We are trying to guide and give practical guidance to our members. And also, as I said before, we've been working together under the IMO, and IMO just actually finished the recommendation for the crew change, which was done by ICAs, BIMCO, all the other shipping organizations, and P&I clubs. So now for us, this is not the hard work. This is because we all working together very well. The hard work is actually to take this guidance and ask the states, countries to implement them. So I will take this opportunity to call all my fellow ship owners and all the national association from here to work with us so we can convince countries that they can implement this guidance and the crew change can be done, which means that the shipping can be done safely and efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you too. What impact, Knut, have the restrictions on personal attendance and travel had on the work of DNVGL, especially on your services delivery aboard?
Thank you, Daniel. Let me just start by echoing Sadan a bit, because I think she's bringing up an extremely important point in order to keep the global supply chains moving, and that is to really consider all the crew and the seafarer as essential personnel. And frankly speaking, I believe that authorities around the world can do a lot more to take this into consideration and make it a lot easier than what has been done so far. Coming back to your question, representing the classification business, our job is to make sure that ships and crews can move around safely at all the seas. And there are a few practical things that we have done. So as a former chairman of IAX, I'm very happy to say that the IAX societies are collaborating in order to make sure that ship inspections and surveys can take place. So that is a very pragmatic step. Secondly, we are also in DNVGL pragmatic in collaboration with the flag states on possible postponements of surveys where this can be done in a safe and responsible manner. And then from DNVGL perspective, we've been fully operational throughout this pandemic, and not least thanks to our very consistent strategy over many years to modernize the classification service, but also to provide this service through remote survey technologies. And I'm happy to say that we are open in all places of the world and are able to conduct our part of keeping the logistics chains of this world going, and thereby helping essential equipment reach its destinations, along with all the resources needed for the general needs.
Mm-hmm. Dirk, Europe's shipbuilders and suppliers have focused on special markets. Cruise shipping is now particularly affected by this crisis. How does this change the position of European companies in international competition?
Yeah, that's you're right. That's of course a big effect which we are suffering. As you know, the whole cruise industry is the ships are laid off and laying somewhere. As we have heard before, it's even complicated for the cruise companies to get the crews away from the ships, even the passengers and the crew. So it's a big problem for them. And of course, this reflects immediately into the new building program they're having. And I don't want to talk about plans they might have had before the crisis to do even more new buildings or to do retrofits or conversions or whatever. Definitely in the moment they have complete different things to solve in their companies because it's considering human health and human life, and they have very big responsibility. They know that, they take it serious. So the way how they work is currently shifted since beginning of March, and therefore our industry is suffering, of course, as we are the consequential guys in this chain. When you want to build a new ship, you need to have a good contact to owners. You need to convince them that your yard is the right one, and as a supplier, you need to convince these guys that the technology you have is the right one also for the next future. But in the moment, I mean, who will talk about the next future? What is the future and the next, in the lifetime of the vessel? What is the right technology to choose? Who's the right partner? And that's very difficult. And in these times, those talks cannot be taken. So therefore, our industry is suffering from that. And we have heard from the big shipyards building cruise ships that they are suffering from delay requests from the owners, which is natural, of course. For that, it means that you have to downsize your output of a yard. That means that you have to talk to also the suppliers. They have to downsize their business. Subsequently, the suppliers of the suppliers. It's a big chain following that. And this is a global supply chain in shipping. It's not a regional supply chain. And therefore, our industry is suffering a lot. And we are also knowing this will all start, as we just heard from our colleague from Clarkson, that there will be much more consequential things to come, because when there's no ships ordered, there will be no need for supplies. And we will see in the next month this very hard time.
Mm-hmm. Cristina, we just heard that the conventional markets are in big problems right now. Bound4Blue is still a young startup. Please tell us about your vision and how it can be sustained during this crisis.
So first, for all of you who really don't know about Bound4Blue, because we're a really young company, we are an engineering company, and we deliver automated wind-assisted propulsion systems that basically harness renewable energy as a turnkey solution for all ship owners and operators, which are looking to decrease their fuel-related costs and pollutant emissions. So basically, we are a startup and understood as a company that can disrupt the market and grow exponentially. We're not a big corporation right now, and in fact, it's in this case been a handicap for us. We have a short decision-making hierarchy and no organizational complexity, and this has enabled us to make changes and decisions really, really quickly. We're in fact used to finding innovative ways to adapt to the changing world, and this situation has been no different from others. And in fact, it's quite sad to say, given the circumstances, but it's benefited us in several aspects. We've received more inquiries from ship owners asking for our technology, and they have even signed more letters of intent to install it. We have also opened the funding round for the full commercialization of our technology, and we have also been surprised by this situation, because the COVID is not blocking us to secure it, and there are investors willing to keep investing in the maritime sector, and the majority of them are not coming from this industry. They are coming from software, for instance. So I think there's something really positive to say, that there are also other investors from other sectors that are willing to invest in R&D in the maritime sector. Obviously, not everything is perfect, and the bad part, we're the engineering company, but we outsource the manufacturing process and also the installation process. So we have a dependency on providers where, unfortunately, COVID has had a major effect. So the manufacturing process of the commercial units have slowed down a little bit and even stopped for 2 weeks. But well, we are right now on schedule again, so no worries. I mean, that's the balance.
Okay, thank you for this first round of voices from the situation in the industry. This is a reminder for those of you that joined us a little later today. You can send questions to the panelists via email. The address is shown on your screen right now, and you can find it also in the confirmation email to this event. Martin, back to you. This situation is not going to last forever. How is the current disruption going to change the worldwide balance, for example, between the shipbuilders and suppliers here in Europe and the competitors in Asia? How will it be possible to ramp up business once this crisis wanes?
Well, these are big questions, and in fact, I got locked down on my farm like the rest of the world about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and I decided to crank up my model and see if I could figure out what might happen next. I don't think models tell you the future, but they sometimes, you know, just arithmetic can bring you face to face with realities. And there's a couple of things I hope to bring out here that that came out of all this work. I think the key thing is that this cycle, unlike previous cycles, is not the result of something that happened in the world economy that we wouldn't control. This cycle is being produced as a result of policy decisions by governments. It's being backed up by financial decisions. And really, when we look ahead, we've got a different set of variables in the equation that will determine how quickly things get solved. The first one is how well the governments manage the whole process in terms of the financing of this enormous investment they've made to keep the economies going. 15–20% of the economy being ploughed back, much more. I mean, in the UK, it's much more than that. And that we have to see how they get through. The second thing is we have to see how the medicine comes along, whether the medics do come up with effective ways of figuring out simple things like who's had it and who hasn't had it, and the treatment. And I noticed the World Health Authority organization announced this morning they didn't think we should rely on getting a cure or a vaccine, you know. So I think that's a second variable. And the third one is behavioral stuff. We're dealing here the issues with seafarers, with employees throughout the world, is will they be willing to go back to work? I think there's some very positive news here and some things that are a bit worrying. So could I perhaps just briefly run you through my 3 scenarios, which will set the scene for 1 or 2 things I hope to say later. On this chart, you can see this is world seaborne trade. On the left-hand axis is trade in millions of tons, and you can see we've been through 50, 60 years of steady growth, just minor interruptions to this. And the question, what I've done here is to put together 3 scenarios, which first of all look at what happens with the coronavirus crisis, but then goes on to look at what happens with the climate change afterwards. Because I think the really important thing here, when we go back to work, to pick up your question, well, of course, some of us haven't stopped, but you know, is to actually look at what we need to be doing about the climate change issues, because I'm sure that's not going to go away. And so the first scenario, very briefly here, assumes that we all go through that governments follow the sort of pattern set by China, and we get through by the end of this year. Business is sort of getting back to normal. Next year, we sort out some logistics and some stock building issues and so forth, and we're back and running again in a couple of years' time. And I spent a couple of hours on the phone to Shanghai this morning, and they seem to be getting back to normal. I thought that was encouraging. Then beyond that, trade picks up and it grows at 3.2% per annum, which is the 50-year average. So this scenario is probably as good as it's going to get. The second scenario, we see problems dragging on. I won't bore you with that, but anyone who looks at my report, I go into a bit more detail. We see a couple of bad years as the virus drags on. It's difficult to get people back to work, etc. Then trade picks up. We grow at 2.2% per annum, and by 2050 we have 20 billion tons of trade. That's a sort of middle of the road situation. And then finally, the third scenario, we run into problems and trade goes down. And by 2025, trade has actually gone down 17% compared with the position last year. That is not a hypothetical number. It's not something that hasn't happened before. In fact, I based that on what happened in the 1980s when the oil trade did actually collapse for not possibly such severe situation. So I don't think you can afford to rule out the third scenario. And then, of course, trade grows very slowly at 0.7% because, you know, nearly 40% of our cargo today is fossil fuels. And are we going to be moving as much cargo in 2050 of fossil fuels? I think maybe. So these scenarios are on the table. We need to look at them. And I think it's important that shipbuilders and equipment suppliers start right away thinking about I4 technology and emissions, because we're going to need that. It's important that investors get used to thinking about continuous technical change. We've been used to building the same ship again and again, a bit bigger. I think that there's been years in the past, in the 19th century, when technology has changed every year, and I think the same is going to be true in the next 20 or 30 years. So we should start now. And the third thing, and perhaps the most important, is that governments and organizations like BIMCO need to set up the framework for the protocols that we're going to need to introduce I4 technology across the industry in a way which is going to be manageable and which other industries like the car industry have already done. So that is quite a long session, Chairman, but I apologize for that. I've done my best.
That's okay. We're going to dive into the topic of green shipping a little more in depth later on. But the question of investments straight goes over to Sadan. Just a few weeks ago, green shipping and digitization were the big topics, and they won't go away, as we just heard. That always meant massive investments into the fleet. How can this be done when revenues dwindle? Are we going to see massive consolidations and takeovers?
Okay, let me start with the markets, and I will dare to say a few words just because I am the BIMCO president, because Martin is the expert that we all respected so much. You know, maybe the numbers are not exactly bad right now, but you know, with the cruise lines, ferries, and containers, it's just coming segment by segment, and for the coming future, we do not expect anything nice, unfortunately. But at the same time, we have a 2050 target to reach. And if we do not reach our targets regarding the green gas emissions, then we have to deal with the local and very, very harsh regulations. And so for ship owners, for shipping, there is no other alternative than investing in green shipping. And I just, you know, want to hope that the markets will get better. But even if it is not, we have to go on to find the correct solutions. And the solutions won't be one, it will be more than one. And as Martin said very rightfully, organizations like BIMCO should work on the framework, and that's what we do actually. And you will see that in IMO, we have a joint paper regarding the research fund, because you know everybody is researching. There are nice startups like Cristina's, and you know the MVG is working. Everybody is working on green shipping, but in their own corners. And we already know that there won't be one solution, and there cannot be one solution for only one for shipping. So that's why we are we have every intention as ship owners to invest as much as we can in a certain methodology, so we can come up with this, alternatives and new technologies, or not that we will develop them, but we want to find who is doing what and how we can, help them. If we do not take our destiny in our hands, as I said before, then we have to deal with the future shipping, which is very local, different regulations, and this is not good. So I know that these are the terrible times, but we always have to look on the long term, and the future of shipping depends on these technologies and green shipping. When it comes to digitalization, I have to say that there are only few good things coming out of this pandemic, and one of them is the conservative shipping industry will become much more digitalized, and also because we will see this to minimize the human contact, for example, in the ports. So I think that in there the future is look much better out of necessity. And when it comes to the takeovers, you see, I mean, I am not expecting massive takeovers. I am expecting takeovers. We are expecting takeovers more than usual, yes. But this time, everything will be very challenging for all the shipping companies. And the future, at least the short-term future, 1, 2, 3 years, will be very much depending on how the countries, react against this great recession. Thank you.
Between all those grave problems I've just heard about, I heard some positive things as well. Knut, if we reflect on the maritime sector more generally, what can we learn from this crisis?
Well, I think it's already been touched upon that we have really accelerated our digital capabilities in the maritime sector. I use the phrase that we put a turbocharger on the development, and I would be saying we probably advanced the development of digital by half a decade. And that is truly, quite astonishing, and we will have benefits out of that. I think also, like the two speakers before me touched upon, that the need for innovation is clearly there, not just to meet regulatory requirements in 2030 or 2050, but also to meet the general expectations of the wider stakeholder group, including financiers, etc. So I think that the sentiment in the industry will be much more inclined to carrying out innovative approaches and challenge the ways we have been working before. So in many ways, I see this as a renaissance for the maritime industry. We will look at things in new ways. We will be much more open to innovative ideas, and we will for sure challenge everything in the way that we have done things in the past. And I think with this mindset, I'm so optimistic that this fantastic industry, with all its really very capable and competent individuals and so many different players, will find great and inspiring solutions. And just if you allow me one point, which I think is also encouraging. Martin mentioned that he visited Shanghai this morning. I spent some time in Dalian this morning, and I talked to one of the big shipyards there, and they are back into 100% production capacity. And this is 4 months after, the pandemic really hit China. And I think we should regard this now in Europe. We're in the middle of a long winter, but spring will come and it will be spectacular, and it is not far away.
Dirk, we just heard that your competitors are experiencing a spring in Asia while we're still here in winter in Europe. What does the manufacturing industry here in Europe need to survive the current crisis and manage a good restart once it's over?
Yeah, first of all, for us marine suppliers, the supply industry, these are not our competitors, they are our customers. So also I had a phone call this morning with Shanghai and also with Shenzhen, not with Dalian, that like Knut, but we have good customers in Dalian. And, you know, if I just see my company in Becker Marine Systems, 85% of our turnover is done in Asia. I fully agree spring will come. I also fully agree new technology is that what will be one of the ways out of it. The problem is new technology is expensive. And we have heard that the ship owners are, regarding spending money, they have some problems because what about their customers? Will they pay more for a clean vessel? We see some projects where that is true. Let's say these nice green thinking furniture houses out of Scandinavia. They like to ship green, or if you see electric cars, when they ship them over the ocean, they want to have those shipping transportation done green. They will pay a bit more. You know, these modern times, we can use them as an example out of my company, thanks to the modern times DNVGL prepared earlier before. We were in the process of a fuel cell approval with DNVGL. Normally, those things cost about a year when you do it in personal meetings because it's difficult to organize personal meetings. Thanks to home office, we did all that in only 4 months. And thanks to DNVGL and thanks to your team, Knut, we have now a fuel cell available for shipping globally with approval of principle DNVGL in very, very short time, thanks to these digital things. There are a lot of chances. I mean, with these teleconferences, we can jump over the whole world within a whole day. You can do in the morning Asia, you can do in the evening the States, and we are doing it. And there I see chances. But also, I must say, now since March, we are not able to travel over to Asia. And we all know that in Asia, a personal relationship is what is the foundation of new business. And I'm afraid that we will not be able to travel there even into the October time. So it will be 7 to 8 months, no traveling, no way to find new friends, to find new businesses. And this is exactly the same time where China, for example, opens now for new technologies. They are launching rockets of investments into infrastructure, into digitalization, 5G, one of those words, into clean energies like hydrogen, like wind energy, solar energy, new ways of shipping. And we, as not Chinese, cannot travel there. And there I see quite a big problem in the future. It could happen that there will be projects where we will not be part of because we just cannot be there and launch our relation management, you know. And this, to find new projects and new business partners, is very, very hard to be done by email conferencing because you need to know the right person. And you need to have good references for that. And that's in Asia especially a big problem. And there I expect some more problems. Well, for the shipyards here, it's the same. I mean, they have to meet with owners and they are also more and more ruled also by Asian money. And if they cannot travel, if they cannot meet personally, it's a problem. So therefore, I have a very good hope if we come back to the main subject, our SMM, the world's leading fair in shipping and shipbuilding and ship supply. I hope that we can do this in February with all the world coming to it and to be able to meet there in a very compact site to do that, what we can do best, making new relations, new projects, discuss all that. And that's why I hope that we can do that in February. And I would be a very big fan of that.
Excellent. Bernd, the question goes directly to you. Can you tell us anything about the way the exhibitors have responded? Are they going along with the decision to postpone to February 2021?
Well, yes, actually, I'm very happy, or the entire team is very happy that indeed the vast majority of exhibitors support the new February dates. And we have been receiving plenty of very positive feedback, especially because the postponement now gives our exhibitors a more solid base for planning. And that's very, very important. As of today, SMM, 95% of the exhibitors that have registered and signed for the September date are still with us. And this allows us, on the one hand side, to accept some new companies who are on the waiting list, so they can be with us. The exact figures, I guess, we will have at the end of the month, so 2 or 3 weeks time from now. but the response in general is very positive, and I fully agree with Dirk, what he's saying, that with all, despite all the digital methods you can take and do now, like today's video conferencing, at the end of the day, it is a question of seeing your partner, learning news about your partner, and this can only be done when you meet face to face. I think there's a lot of support that is given by digital technologies. We will use them actually also during SMM in February. Conferences, open stages can be joined through video conferencing and so on. But the core, and I deeply believe in that, and not just only because I'm an exhibition guy for 3 decades, is that one of our main ideas is meet people, see them, talk to them, see products, compare them, find new partners, find new technologies. And yeah, so far, just in one sentence, yes, the exhibitors are working with us. They are very optimistic, and that's I think a good sign for the February SMM.
Excellent. Thank you for now. Bernd will have to leave us now because he has another appointment at 3 o'clock. But the rest of us, we will talk about green chipping and the chances that might come out of this and the challenges. Martin, you say that the corona pandemic shaking up the status quo might be a catalyst for the radical measures needed in times of climate change and digital revolution. For some, that might sound like a promise, for some more like a threat. How do you categorize it?
Well, I wouldn't say it's either a promise or a threat. I think it's just commercial common sense that actually by the end of the 2020s, the ships built in the last shipbuilding boom, that was between 2008 and 2014, will have to be replaced. And do we really want to replace those ships with the same technology we've used for the last 50 years? And if we don't, you can't just put stuff to sea. I mean, I think, you know, Sadan is a ship owner, and I'm sure she would be the last person who would want to put innovative equipment on a ship. You need years to trial it. And this is a very complicated business. And so I think when I thought about this quite a bit when I was doing my mega modeling exercise, and I've got a graph here, which hopefully you're going to see in a moment. Next graph, please. Which is based on, this is figure 4, by the way, guys. This is based on actually studying what happened during the 19th century when they switched from steam to from sail to steam. And what happened was that for a period of about 40 years, you had continuous technical change, because you didn't just suddenly have a great, fantastic steam engine in 1866. That engine continuously improved. And the same thing happened with the diesel engine. The first diesel ship, the Saldania, built in 1913, that actually had its engine changed twice during its life, and the diesel engine by 1938, and it was about a third the size of the previous one and far more economical. And I think what I've tried to encapsulate in this slide, which shows you on the vertical axis, million deadweight of deliveries. The past is deliveries. The future is requirement for new ships based on, this is based on my scenario 2, in which trade grows at 2.2% per annum, ships trade at 12 knots, and we start to develop zero carbon ships towards the end of the period. And you see that the first wave that I put in here is diesel ships enhanced and IMO compliant. In other words, at the moment, we can't replace, there isn't really, although Dirk has got a fuel cell out there, this is a long road to go down. And at the moment, we are sort of stuck with diesel engines. So it seems to me in this first wave, what you're doing is bringing all the new technology within the various functions on the ship together. but you're building them around the diesel engine propulsion platform. And maybe simultaneously, you're starting to bring in gas and hybrid, bring in the batteries and so forth, all of which over the next decade helps you to lay the foundations for the framework of the ship, which will, I guess, probably be some sort of all-electric vehicle by the 2030s. I mean, if we're going to meet the IMO target, you have to get to this third wave, which is fuel cell, maybe burning ammonia or hydrogen, lots of issues to discuss there. So that's really the way that I saw that happen. And I'd say the sooner we start with this, the better. And in a way, we have this great gap, as you'll see, in the requirement for ships, which I agree with Sadan, your point about something nasty ahead probably applies in spades to the shipbuilders. And so we're going to need some speculative ordering to fill this gap. And that's a great opportunity to trial some new technology and to take a few chances, put some of this stuff to work. I have to say it's a very, very steep hill to climb, because although, Sadan, you talked a lot about the crews, I think you've got to ask whether we have the personnel systems on shore and in the industry as a whole, and we have the relationships, Dirk, with our cargo owners, because you mentioned that the cargo owners won't pay for it. And believe me, you're not the first person who said that. So I think we've got a lot of human relationship work to do as alongside making these technologies work. And I would certainly hope at SMM you get a few cargo owners along as well. That would be great. Anyway, that's what I have to say on that one.
Okay, thank you. Cristina, when you hear how much new technology is going to be necessary after the crisis is over, how will this pandemic open up new opportunities for your company?
So generally speaking, I think that this situation has accentuated the organization's weaknesses and threats, and I see this as an opportunity to improve. And I believe we will start seeing those organizations embracing new technologies, and even the ones that were available before the crisis, but they were reluctant to adopt. But I'm for sure, I agree with the other speakers. These green technologies must be profitable by themselves, not only offer emissions reduction, and they don't have to be used together with subsidies. They must be profitable by themselves. So focusing a little bit more on direct green propulsion, which is where Bound4Blue is working, I think that it is sometimes excluded or not incorporated correctly into the decarbonization pathways, where the market is putting exclusive focus or nearly exclusive focus on longer-term alternative fuel options. And personally, I don't see a sustainable pathway to low carbon fuels if we are expecting them to deliver 100% of the propulsion power today. Alternative fuel will be expensive and renewable intensive at the beginning, but then we have wind propulsion that can provide a quarter of the power, and there are other technologies available also nowadays. So you've got heat exchangers, you've got weather routing, and so on. And we will be able to make it happen with all of these together, these technologies together combined. And I also believe that the decarbonization of shipping will require a system-wide transformation, which cannot be achieved by any organization alone. But well, the good news is that there are a lot of ship owners, technology providers, and class societies. Everyone is working for a cleaner environment and embracing this change in their organization. And I think this is positive news to tell everyone.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Knut, talking about another technology that was been talked about a lot in the last years. Now the crews are stuck on their ships and can't be relieved. Ship owners might realize that autonomous shipping has an elevated appeal. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I can see this is probably an interesting topic to discuss. And frankly speaking, I think this is a blind alley. I mean, autonomous shipping is, in my view, very much a niche application, and it lies a little bit ahead in time if we wanted to apply it to sort of the general and especially deep sea shipping. However, what I think is a more interesting discussion, and which I think we will see the results of after this, is that there is potential to have more autonomy on board the vessels, but not without the crew. So there will be a much better interface between the vessel, its crew, and the onshore centers of the ship owners. And that, I think, opens up a lot of potential for efficiency gains, first of all on the individual vessel, but certainly across the fleets within the same ship owning company, but also if you want to integrate that a bit further and look at the entire logistic chain. So I think the key is really not unmanned or fully autonomous vessel. The key is how can we exploit and utilize the technologies to get a high degree of automation on board. And I think that's a pathway that we will for sure explore.
Sadan, with all those technologies on the horizon, do you also see opportunities and chances in this situation?
Well, I think we are in the historic moment, and things, as you know, we all already agreed, and there's a consensus among the panelists that, you know, things will be different from now on. How long we will keep the pace of this, you know, different situation, that we will see, because as you know, people tend to forget and people tend to go back to their, you know, routines. But, you know, if there is a crisis, there is always opportunities. But this time, I think the opportunities can find the companies who are adaptable and innovative. Because I think for a time being, the nature of the countries will change. They will maybe look for a closer place for their, you know, orders. They will look for, you know, close transportation costs. And then we need really innovative and adaptable, agile companies in order to grab these opportunities.
Dirk, where are your greatest hopes? Which development could give the European industry a head start?
Yeah, first of all, very happy news I just received on my email. Our Becker canteen will be open next week. That's best. Then we can have a nice drink again. No, but where are the big chances? I am definitely, it's going green and saving emissions. But on the other side, if we see how cheap fossil fuel is in the moment, it is in the moment not the right time to visit owners and telling them, hey, we have a nice fuel cell. And by the way, it costs 4 times that what a normal engine costs. And by the way, the fuel costs only 10 times of that what normal fuel costs. But it has no emission. So the owner will say, wow, great, come back with that when you were on equal level. We will have no chance to reach equal level without mass production. With mass production, we can only get if we have customers ordering it. So it's we need a lot of state support, We need a lot of legislation. We need to make fossil fuel much more expensive by artificial, whatever, tax or whatever schemes. And now hopefully nobody will shoot at me now from the owner's side. But I mean, that's exactly why in road traffic, the changes came over the years by giving penalties to emissions, either by tax or by direct added cost or whatsoever. The only chance going green is the money way. So as we have seen in Becker Marine with our Messe duct, we are saving 6% of fuel when you install it. So the owner said, wow, if the fuel price is like that, then we have a payback in 1.5 years. We will add you a nice Messe duct. But by reducing the fuel consumption by 6%, you reduce the emission by 6%. But to be honest, that was not the driver of such a decision. The driver was saving costs. And I have not seen any technology yet where cleaner fuel, meaning cleaner shipping, is cheaper. Not any. If one would have that, this guy would be a rich guy immediately. So we are so advanced in all our technology which is available. Everything is more expensive, it becomes more green. And this we have to understand. So we have to tell to the society, to the people, to the cargo owners, to the customer of those cargo owners, to those guys buying these nice furniture, hey, your chair will be 10 euro more expensive if we ship it green. And they have to accept that. They have to be able to afford that. In the moment, in Germany, we have the nice saying, Geiz ist geil, meaning the cheaper the better. And the more fancy it is, we have to change that around. It's not the cheapest thing, the best available. It is more the sustainable way. But on the other way, if we see who is the consumer in the world, we have to talk about those guys in Africa, in Brazil, in India, all these growing economies. Can they afford green? Question mark, I don't know. So when will the world, the mass of the world, be able to afford green? I mean, how will you tell an African family living in a tribe somewhere now in the moment that in the future they have to ship everything with fuel cell cars or whatever, with cost a fortune? It's a very hard way to go green. We in the very high industry countries, we know how to do, but we also know that the more we save here, the more standard and emission-free in emitting things over there in the other regions. So it's a very hard path to go. But for our shipping industry, shipbuilding industry, shipyards, sustainability is the way to go. The question is, who will pay for that?
Mm-hmm. Martin, with all the question marks Dirk is talking about, and all the change you're talking about, what will the industry look like in 2040, let's say? Will we see a trend for less globalization, probably?
Well, that's I guess that's the way I feel it's going. And just picking up Dirk's point about the high cost of the new technology, I think, speaking as an economist, it's important to remember that it's not just about technology. It's about getting there by any means. And one of the cheapest and best ways of slowing down, given that ships are very cheap, cheap today, is to slow the ships down to 10 knots. If you go down to 10 knots, you actually cut your emissions enormously. And the cost is that the ships will earn less because they won't carry so much cargo. So that's a sort of aside there, and I'll chuck that one in. As far as regionalization is concerned, I think that we've had 50 years of globalization. It makes sense for all sorts of reasons that I won't go into now to start to focus more on your own backyard. Perhaps the most important is that the world economy is much, much bigger than it was 50 years ago. And regions like Europe, Asia, North America can comfortably fit into that sort of, can be self-sufficient more easily, and rather strategic issues. The other thing that I think is really attractive about this is that it brings the focus back onto short sea shipping, which has been much neglected. I mean, apart from sort of ferries and things, in the UK, we have not really used short sea shipping nearly as much as we used to many years ago. We've been happy to put things on lorries and take them down to the south of England and put them on a big container ship. So, and I think the short sea trades are a very good testing ground for the new technologies. I know Knut's DMVGL did a very nice study on hybrid ships, hybrid container ship in the short sea trades, which just sort of demonstrated some of the benefits you can get. And I think this is a good way to prime this sort of investment. So for the shipping industry, I think it's definitely worth looking at hard.
Mm-hmm. Sadan, when you hear those scenarios and those question marks about the development, what do you think about them? What is your point of view on that?
Okay, first of all, of course, it is needless to say, for green shipping, you need a joint effort. Ship owners are not necessarily do not like the new technology. Actually, we like them, but it is a matter of cost. And when you talk about the cost, it is not because we want to increase the our profit. It's simply because that the consensus is needed in order to reflect this, as very rightfully said by Dirk, to the people who walk on the streets. They have to know that we are ready to do this, but there is a price that we all have to pay. And in the times like this, that you think that sometimes, not personally us maybe, but we have an idiom in Turkey. We said that when it gets tough, then people tend to break the rules. And so you might just think that, climate change maybe is not important. But when we see that the real, destruction, because we are not taking any action, this whole thing will come up to us even severe way. And what concerns me is that this kind of, pandemics, of course, is against the idea of globalization. Now, as very, rightly said by Martin, everybody will look at their backyard, and maybe, the farthest they will go will be their neighbors. But the globalization can be answer of most of the problems we have. And it is a very good way of actually fighting against the poverty, but it needs to be used in a correct way. And of course, this is me wishful thinking. Do we see this? No, instead we see trade wars, and it was already there before this pandemic between US to China, US to European Union. And now we see that even more strains are putting on the, global trade. This is not good for shipping. This is not good for anybody. And this is also not good for the global, supply chain, because, Martin will know this, and we all know this, but I think as an expert, he can confirm this better, that without shipping, without the global supply chain, we cannot survive. Shipping proven to be vital more than ever. So we have to focus on this, and we all have to tell this to everyone on the street, because sometimes it surprised me that people think that the coffee that they are drinking, literally coming from Starbucks or the, a field next to Starbucks, but that's not the case. And if we don't want to be freeze, if we don't want to be starved, if we want to help Africa and all other, less privileged and developing places, we have to hold on to globalization. But this demand will be only valid if it comes from the people, because politicians do not listen ship owners or, shipping people, but they do listen people, their, own citizens. Thank you.
Thank you too. We don't have a crystal ball, but Knut, when the COVID haze clears, what good, if any, will come from this crisis?
Yeah, you are right. We don't have a crystal ball, but it's allowed to speculate a bit, I guess. So I think what has been mentioned now by Sadan is very important. The general population really do not see the importance of shipping and the maritime industry unless there is something bad happening, an accident or some similar incident. So I think what we have come to realize now is that the global economy, the global trade, the supply of goods and essential equipment really rely on shipping. And I think that is something that we should try to amplify and get across to the general population as a very important point in itself. Secondly, I would say that if you go back to the graph that Martin showed about the 3 stages, the world has sufficient gas for quite a long time. There are solutions to go for a gas hybrid solution on the propulsion side. Although this will not remove the CO2 emissions, we will get a 20% reduction, which is a great step forward. And then Martin also mentioned electrification. We see that in a lot of sectors. And for sure, government incentives help to accelerate this. And for sure, batteries is really already a very viable solution. And with the further incentives also mentioned in the beginning of the discussion with the R&D funds, I think the industry, if you look at the maritime industry, it's really very fragmented. So what we need, rather than doing research, Becker Marine, DNVGL, some of the ship owners, some of the shipyard, I mean, what we really need is a really sufficient R&D fund to try and accelerate the next solution for propulsion on the vessels that keep the global economy going. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in that, but we need to make these things happen.
Dirk, if this R&D fund really would come and happen, take a guess. What's the situation of European manufacturers for the maritime industry like in 20 years from now? What's left after Corona, and what will be the main products your industry sells?
Well, I think this will not so much change against that what we are already delivering. It's because the technology we need is there, it's available, and we are producing it already in smaller numbers now. It's no problem to enlarge that. Batteries are there, those kind of things. So fuel cells are there, LNG is there, it's available, technology is there for bunkering, but also for building the engines. So I think the coronavirus will make us a bit more efficient because of the digitalization and the enhanced possibilities that will bring. We will save traveling costs, I think, which we can spend more into R&D. And hopefully this will, I would say, give us better ties to the ship owning companies, so that there will be a relation like we already have and had all the time, but even more tight relation between ship owners, suppliers, and shipyards and class to work together on this problem in a joint effort to make shipping greener and affordable. And to Knut, I would like to say regarding the utilization of LNG or CNG on board of ships, well, that's definitely the way forward. It's a very clean fuel. We just have to solve the CO2 issue. We are already in projects for carbon capturing on board of seagoing ships. There I see a big chance that we can store CO2, which was emitted from the combustion of LNG on board, at least while the ships are in ports or along the coastline. And then we can bring that CO2 in a liquid form from the ship to either dump it, like in Norway, or to make out of that green fuel again. So things are there, they are available. And as we all said, there are big chances for the green technology, which is there. But I really would like to raise the point again, this thing is more expensive. And we all know that when we just see a car, if you buy a Ford Mondeo or you buy a Tesla Model 3, there is a price gain on that. And this price tag somebody has to pay.
Okay, Cristina, you just heard that price drives the market. So what do you expect the market to do with your product? Is there going to be a market for it? And how many ships will travel the oceans with your wind sails in 20 years?
Yeah, I'd first like to say that when I speak about wind sails, I'd like to see them like energy, not fuel efficiency measures. And we expect that 1,000 vessels will be navigating with our sails in 10 years' time. I know that there might be people that do not believe in this type of technologies today. It's R&D, but numbers are there today. And according to the Clean Maritime Plan from the government of UK, the global market projection for wind propulsion systems is estimated to grow from £300 million per year in 2020 to around £2 billion per year by 2050. And wind propulsion, I don't see it as a small sideline. We are coming in a much bigger situation. There are large players and class societies like the NVGL seeing opportunities. We are starting to see more and more demonstrators, and that those have been validated by trustworthy third parties, which shows that wind propulsion must be an integral part of every decarbonization pathway that is being developed right now. The European market analysis forecasts up to 10,700 installed systems until 2030 on bulk carriers, tankers, and container vessels. So it's quite a conservative number because they are not getting all the market there. And this is equivalent to savings of up to 7.5 megatons of CO2 in 2030. So I know it's R&D, but it's worth the risk. I'd also like to say that in the history of the world, there has never been a storm that lasted. This too shall pass, but let's be smart. We must see this pandemic as an opportunity today to fight climate change, unlock the global energy transition, and stimulate a financial recovery. And this can be achieved by decarbonizing the shipping industry.
Thank you. I would like to thank our speakers for now. It's time for the questions we received from the audience. And there's one directed to Martin and possibly to Dirk. Will the construction of large container ships continue, or will this also be postponed or delayed or even cancelled? The question comes from the SWZ Maritime, Netherlands.
Well, I mean, I've been writing papers about this since at least 2001, and nobody's ever paid any attention to what I said. So I've generally not been a great fan of the very big ships. I think that I've tended to find that when you run the numbers after about 12,000 TEU, the benefits become fairly minimal, and you start to get into sort of peripheral costs for the ports and the logistics, which probably overwhelm them. But people do what they want to do. I think that if you take the globalization point, which Sadan raised, and I mean, I'd like to talk to her more about that, because of course, in a way, globalization sounds good, but I think probably, you know, a lot of globalization was about getting cheap stuff from places that didn't know any better and selling products to places where there was good markets. And I think the world knows much more nowadays, and people want to control their own destiny more, and you can't walk into markets, do things so easily. So I think that improving the integration of the big regions is going to be very helpful. And if you did that and you got a decent short sea shipping service going, sort of based on a blend of UPS and Amazon and Uber and all that stuff, then you would shuttle your cargo between regions in very, very big ships, maybe even bigger than we use today, who instead of going around 12 or 14 ports, they would just go between very big regional centers, and you'd be able to get online and arrange your distribution from that center to your own local port. So you don't have to, you don't have to take a truck across congested motorways. I think that would be more my vision, if you see what I mean. And in that case, you could have both. You'd have big ships and little ships, but there you go. People do what they want in this life.
So from the same journalist, there comes the question to Dirk. It's rather special. What are the prospects for building cruise ships at Meyer Werft and MV Werften? That's obviously very interesting for the Dutch maritime industry. Can you comment on that?
Only a little bit, because I haven't been in contact with them since then. But we have seen that the ships, for example, MV Werft, they have been closed for a while. They are now reopening slowly. Meyer Werft has reduced the staff in a remarkable way. Really congratulations to this entrepreneurship over there to scale down such a big business. Definitely they will suffer delays, hopefully not cancellations. And coming back to the big ships, we are in the moment in projects at Becker Marine with nearly 40 big ships to be built. Very serious, very big customers, and they want to have them, and they have a market for it. And as Martin said, there is a market for those, but not all ships will be big ships. What I'm a bit more concerned will be, what about big cruise ships, big passenger ferries? Will they have a future after this Corona thing? Will people go on board of that, or will the smaller ships be more superior? And if the smaller ships are more superior, will these smaller ships go into very vulnerable areas like the Arctic? Do we need those ships over there when they are not clean? We should ban them there. Many things will come up. It's a big chance for smaller and bigger.
And there's a question for Sadan. It's from the Magazin Europäische Sicherheit und Technik. What is BIMCO's assessment of future economic trade and developments? You already talked about that, but maybe you can elaborate it a little more.
I would love to say good things, but from where we stand, we do not see immediate recovery. We do not see V-shaped recovery. And as I said, but how we are going to heal out of this, the markets, the people, it all depends on the countries, how they will react to this, and also how they will react towards each other. And I see a lot of focus on domestic. This might be good if you want to clean your house. If it's a spring cleaning, but if this is because that you want to survive while the others are suffering, that will only harm the world economy, the humanity, everything altogether. So that's why it is very important that to be sure that the politicians hear us and act accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Then there's a question to Dirk again on a very current event. Is there an official statement on the shipyard merger, German Naval Yards and Lürssen, that was published this morning?
No, not to me. I also have seen it in the press, and I think it's a quite logical step. And it's two family businesses joining forces in order to be better aware of these projects coming ahead, and especially in the military cases. I think it's a logical step that they consolidate and join their forces on this very tough market situation in the moment. But I have no news on that other than that was be seen in the press.
Okay, and then we have a question for Martin again on the broader picture. Are you confident that the shipping regulators and self-policy system has the speed and potential to handle the necessary developments?
Well, not really, no. I mean, let's start with IMO. I mean, IMO, it is remarkable that they've got 172 members. It's remarkable that they ever reach a decision on anything. And I think the achievement in giving us a target for 2050 and 2030 on the carbon really was not only a very good decision, but it was an important decision. It has actually got the attention of the industry, and I think that was very good. I do think myself that a lot of the stuff technically that's going to happen needs to be done commercially. And for example, Dirk and Knut talked about the onboard engineering of ships. I personally think we really do need to look towards some sort of control area network system, like they've done on cars in the 80s. And if you do that, you need protocols. You need agreed industry protocols. All the car manufacturers use the same protocol, and the CANBUS F2. And I don't know who in shipping is going to take the lead in getting that done. And so I think for the answer to that question is it's a very big challenge, and I think the industry shouldn't necessarily wait for the official regulators. It's too difficult. I think they should try to move ahead and pioneer the territory if they really buy into the technology, as I think hopefully we all do on this discussion, and as SMM is going to promote in February. I think we need to pick up our bed and walk ourselves, as the good book says.
Thank you. As we're wrapping up this very interesting discussion, I would like to direct a question to all you experts. We're experiencing a press conference here at a distance today, and that seems to work reasonably well. In your opinion, why is personal contact with customers and colleagues from all over the world so important at a trade fair like SMM? I don't know, maybe Sadan, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. You do a lot of things nowadays visually, and you can do a lot with the people you know, the people you trust. But when you are developing a new relationship, then I think you need this personal touch. Yeah. That is the first thing. The second thing is that, we all think that there is, and we all know that there is a wider world in the internet. Yes, there is. But if you think an event like SMM, and the whole shipping people are together for a couple of days and available for each other, so we know that shipping is all about networking, and networking can be done, in person. So I still think that, human interaction face to face is much more important than to be sure that things are getting done. And I also, from experience, because I am sure all the panelists have the same thing. We've been doing a lot of meetings, regular meetings, board meetings, executive meetings, a lot of meetings from the all this visual what is available for us. You see that the first week is very nice. The second week is doing fine. The third week, people are starting to fade away a little bit. And everybody is, not being on time necessarily. So you lose the momentum. So because you need people, you need the human touch for the momentum. And I have to say, I have a, of course, more than one hat. And I am a ship owner. I'm born as a ship owner. And but also we have shipyards. So I am a customer of SMM. And our shipyards are the customer of SMM. And I'm looking forward to come in February and to see all my friends and to make new friends, of course.
Okay, how about you, Cristina? I don't know if you had the chance for the last SMMs to be here.
Yeah, the last SMM, it was in fact our first time there. It was amazing, so we expect to come back, of course. And apart from what Sadan told about, I also agree that, for instance, digital marketing can be useful and can play its role in the shipping industry, but it's lacking that sense of personal connection, and I think it's key, not only in this industry but also in B2B business. And I also see trade fairs as a great opportunity to grow our brand, not only in front of new, but also existing customers. So we see it as a way to show the values of our company, what truly moves us, and for sure show our customers how we work. And I think it's a marketing channel where we invest the greatest amount of money. Trade fairs are not they're expensive, but it's also a place where we experience higher returns of investment, in fact. And I also think that they're really good opportunity to seek media exposure and to present new products and new agreements. And in our case, we are going to release a new product in the SMM in February. So we're looking forward to go there.
Martin, you've been in the business for so long and you've been at so many SMMs. So what are you looking forward to experience next year?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that we're all going to want to get together every year or two in such a complex business as shipbuilding and equipment. It's no good. You can't do these things online. It's hopeless. But I think that the challenge I would have thought for SMM is to make it essential, a must place to go to. And I think probably the hurdle of getting people onto those planes is going to be a bit higher. And there's two things that struck me as I thought about this. One is on-site productivity. These big, I mean, it's not just SMM, these enormous exhibitions. It's quite hard to use your time productively. You can't find where some stand is. And I think apps, the digital guys, the big data exhibitions I've been to, use these apps very, very cleverly, not just at the exhibition, but as follow-on ways of developing that sort of stuff. And I think I was struck by Dirk's talk about closing these deals very quickly. And I think one of the problems that you find, most people are at an exhibition trying to sell something. And the problem is that the people on the stands aren't always either the deal closers or the technical people you need to talk to. And I can see the opportunity of having having breakouts where you can actually get people online and close. You open the deal one day, you discuss it, and you close it before the end of the exhibition, which I think that's another thing. And the third thing, of course, is again, going back to something that I think getting cargo in. If the cargo owners are the customers, they are the guys who will pay the bill in the end. And we need to, as Anna said, we need to educate them before the public, really. And so I think the more you can make it attractive and fun for cargo owners to come to, the better. Fun would be good. I think we should have a lot of fun.
Dirk, how much fun are you going to have at SMM next year?
Oh, a lot, because our stand will be a bit smaller, but we just said, we were joking a little bit, but maybe it's not only a joke. We say we'll just have some sand to make a beach, and then we have a nice cocktail bar and have just fun instead of showing boring products. But you see, we are a shipbuilding family. We are shipping family to meet. I would love to be with Sadan drinking a tea in Turkey, or being in Norway drinking the most expensive beer in the world, or in the UK drinking a nice Guinness or whatsoever. It's not possible at the moment, and that's a big problem. I mean, we're living in a united Europe. We cannot travel even our own borders. We will have big travel problems next future. We cannot meet, and humans have to meet. And we have to laugh together. We have to joke together, have a drink together, bite together. This we cannot do online. It's not impossible. I have here just this nice plastic bottle, which is awful, and I have to drink it alone in my room here. And I would love to sit together with you and share beer. Okay, are you in, Knut, for the beer next year?
Yes, I'm all in. I will certainly be there. And yeah, you left it a little bit tricky for me now to add any sense to all the good comments already given. But for sure, SMM is a truly unique and fantastic meeting place for the maritime industry. And just one reflection to sort of end it from my side, is that you know who you know, and you know what you know, but you don't really know who you don't know, and you don't really know what you don't know. And I think these are, the SMM is a fantastic place to explore that space. And if there's anything we should explore after this pandemic, it's exactly those two things.
I totally agree. But nonetheless, thanks for you all for being here with us today. And thank you also to all the journalists and guests that joined us online today too. Please don't hesitate to direct further questions to Nora Hirschfeld, PR Manager for SMM Hamburg. I wish you a great and successful rest of the day. Please stay healthy and safe. The team of SMM is looking forward to welcoming you in Hamburg next year from February 2nd to 5th.